Hey guys, apologies for the delay for this video. This is the rough tuning guide with cars around Bathurst for the 2 hour. And of course this is going to be a bit of a long video as I'm trying to walk you guys through sort of step by step what I would be doing to test a car. Now for testing's sake, I'm not using my car. Can't give away too many secrets. So I'll be using the FT1, as I know Psydog won't be doing much practice at all, so this just won't really affect him at all. Now currently this is a bone stock setup, which is, you know, exactly what it is when you pop it out. It's going to be how it will feel for Bob, how it feels for any other, you know, race you do when you haven't touched a setup. 100 power, 99 weight, which is my bot with the driver ballast subtracted. At the moment we're just trying to get a bit of a feel, because the lobbies have only been up for about 2 minutes. We've done 0 practice. And we're not used to the FT1. So that would be my first step, is just run it around. You know, do the best you think you can do in the car. Like, tuning isn't a quick process. You can't sort of do a magic setup and find time straight away and expect to be on it. You've got to sort of know the strengths of the car, the weaknesses of the car. And to do that, you've got to be really comfortable with what you have at that point, so that you can understand where you think you can find improvements. So straight away I can see this gearbox is too short, and we don't want to be banging it off the rev limiter this early on. There's probably a few gearing things we can change just to make it so that this car's sitting in the maximum revs, you know, coming out of each corner. But I mean, I shouldn't be spending too much time at this stage sort of picking and poking the setup. Much easier right now if you focus on just going quickly. So of course the target times for qualifying at the moment have been anywhere in the 59s. If you can crack your car into the 59s, you will be well on the pace. 58s are possible, but if you're able to do them consistently, your car is definitely too quick. Or I have gravely underestimated you as a driver, which does happen. I've got a lot of you boys that I've had to bop for this event, and it's not been easy. So I've been sort of keeping an eye on practice sessions, and a lot of you guys have been really helpful in terms of telling me what times you're on, and I've been trying to be as helpful as possible, you know, time accepting. But I haven't been totally on the ball, so I do apologise for that. This is feeling pretty good so far. It's a bit stiff. As you can see, it sort of just chucks its way down. Front end's not giving me a lot of bite, so it's definitely time to find. Rear just wanted to kick loose there. And we touched the wall as well, so pretty scrappy, but I won't stretch out this video too much. I'll sort of just do one lap to show you the stock setup pace. Stock setup pace, honestly, with no tyres, no fuel, you should be able to get down to a 59. That's how every single car was sorted out. So if you find that you're tuning and doing it backwards, and instead of getting slower as you apply tune, just go back to your stock setup and work from there. That is literally how we bopped before. We just used stock setup and we made the cars go as quick as possible. Across the line. God, that's terrible. So on an initial lap, that's a 59.7. So pretty solid. And now we'll see what we can find. So straight away, my go-to for tuning is downforce. So you want to be cracking the front downforce all the way up, and then the rear's a little bit unsteady, so we'll probably just leave it at half. That way we get a nice little a judge to see, you know, what it's going to do in the future. That's a given. You'll leave the front all the way up. You don't touch that, and the rear you can sort of play with depending on how the car handles. Now the gearbox, we know that was pretty screwed up, so we'll take, it says 6 is topping out 315. So we'll just do an initial max speed set, and we'll just take it to 310. And that should leave it with a little bit more breath at the end of the straight. And then we'll just double check our shift point too. That is very crucial, and you can see that the RPMs are dropping off. That's probably around 9,000, I'd say. So you probably want to be doing a slight short shift in this car, which is what I was doing already. Here you have it, and here's the last tip for me, which is sort of a go-to, is the 50 at the front, so absolutely slam the front and raise the rear all the way, so a max rake setup. Now this doesn't always give you optimum pace straight away. I mean, a lot of the time it actually does make the car slower, but it becomes way more comfortable. So you're just able to turn it in way more. I've raised the rear downforce, so that's going to be a bit more comfortable going into the Skyline. We had a few issues in there, as well as the elbow. We'll just see how this goes. Way more turn in straight away. That was able to take it in third comfortably, which is kind of what we want. And then it will become a little bit more loose with the rear being raised up so high, but that's something we can live with for now. And we will be able to work it into the setup. Now this is all flat, and this is just lovely to drive. With a lift over the top. That was just because the line was shocking. So there's the trade-off of what we've done with the rake, and that is the rear instability. So in this case, we'll probably raise the rear downforce when we're next to the pits, because it's become pretty tail happy. And we'll probably lose a couple of k's an hour down towards the chase as well, just because the extra wind resistance of the car being nose down. Let's see how this gearbox is though. It's already looking a fair bit better. That's about right, I'd say. Take it in and we'll do one lap with this. I feel it's quite squirrely under power too, so there's diff settings that we can change with that as well. Very squirrely under power. So for a rule of thumb with the diff, the higher the diff settings, all of them, the more the car is just going to apply all the power at once and just sort of be out of control. So the lower you have it, the more chance, as we understeer massively, the more chance we have, the lower setting that is, the car sort of single pegging and understeering. The big culprit for that will be this corner right here. So you can see the diff is just way too powerful right now for what we're trying to do, and it's causing more oversteer than understeer. So we've already felt those changes pretty good, but we can do better. So front anti-roll bars are a lot stiffer than the rear right now. We'll leave that be. We're going to drop the camber rates because 3 and 3 is just ludicrous and you never want that. So we'll drop it to 2.5 and 2. And the toe in at the rear is never going to be that big either. So we'll take it to about there. And we'll raise the rear downforce all the way initially as well. Braking sensitivity, you want to drop that all the way. There's absolutely no point having it that high. And then we'll take this to about 10-10. Because 40 is just a death wish. And then that should be a lot more comfortable to drive initially. And this is all it is. It's just, obviously over time you develop more of an understanding for what each setting does. And I will actually run through a little bit later on what they do. But yeah, it's just a lot of trial and error. You go through each option, you see what they do to the car, and you can just get more and more comfortable as you go. That's balanced as now. That feels lovely. Worst comes to worst, you can run these cars on the stock setup. They are built to go quickly. Easy flat through that. The important thing is no erratic changes in your setup. Oh, that is just early. See how it goes down here. No, not even a squirt of one to lose. That is perfect. So yeah, this feels wonderful now. This will almost certainly give us a yield in lap time. I'm just able to push this car way harder than I thought I was before. And that's kind of just the aim of tuning, is trying to be able to get your car to a point where you're able to push it lap in, lap out, and still be very comfortable with what the car's doing. And we'll see how much we can extract from it on this hot lap. Yep, that's really nice going on to power now. We can probably take a little bit of rear downforce off, which in hand will give us a bit more top speed back. Lose a bit of traction, but it's feeling really strong on the tracks right now, so keep on pushing it. I actually hesitated a bit there. I wasn't as quick to get on the power, but that just stuck real well. This will just be very nice going through here. Hold it dead flat. A little bit of a safety lift that. I was a bit keen on the power coming through the right hand up. Throw it in, just touch the wall there, try to get it close to the apex. And power out. Lost a little bit of time in sector 3 there. Definitely one of the harder sectors on the track. About to lose connection. No. Chuck it over the curb. And we go hard brakes after 100. Keen on the power again. So pretty scrappy lap. And straight away we find an extra 2.5 tenths. But it's important to remember that tuning isn't a quick fix for whatever problems you have. You still have to know how to pedal the track. But I've got it within, you know, that's probably within half a second of a pole time already, this FT1, so it's on it. We will go through a couple of these settings now. Actually, brake balance is absolutely crucial to how the car behaves. Obviously, the more rearward you are, the more the car's going to pitch coming into the corners. So if you're struggling with understeer, you want to move it rearwards, and which is, you know, the pluses. And if the car is sort of really light in the rear and it's almost overtaking itself going to the braking zones, you can move the brake balance forward, and that's probably going to be the case with anyone running MR cars. So your Alfa Romeos, your Renaults, NSX, I don't think anyone took that, Peugeots, Porsches, etc., etc. Onto the more suspension setting. These are the difficult ones to get a hold of. My go-to with the ride height, like I said, is maximum rake. Obviously, the front being so low, you do open yourself up to bottoming out, which can happen around Bathurst, and you lose some steering. So you can raise the front, you know, drop the rear, have it a bit more balanced, and it'll be a lot more calm. Rule of thumb, the lower the car is, the more it's going to turn in, and the higher the rear as opposed to the front, it's going to turn in even more. Obviously, a high rear end means it's quite detached from the rear axle, meaning it's going to be pretty loose, and you're going to have to sort of play with that in other settings. And if you can't quite get a hold of that, you can always drop the ride height. So I'd be pretty comfortable running at 50 the front, 85 rear, or just sort of shuffling it to see how you like the characteristics of the car. Natural frequency is normally pretty good for these cars. The softer the rear is going to sort of calm down. Softer, by the way, is the lower, so low side here. That's going to calm the rear down a lot, so you're not going to get as much oversteer. You get a little bit more traction on exit, whereas if all of that's really good, you can afford to stiffen it up, and that's going to give you a bit of a yield. And then on the front end, same thing. If you stiffen it up, you're going to get a little bit more understeer. But there's also a sort of nice window where if you stiffen it up and the tyre is willing to put up with it, you'll actually gain a bit of turning. because you can put more force through the tires, and then it's going to be able to give you more. But if it's sort of well past that point, you'll want to drop it. But that's a lot of testing you need to do to sort of understand that. Not exactly my area of expertise. Anti-roll bars are very similar again. Stiffening the rear is just going to make the whole rear end a lot more solid. Can slide it around corners more, puts a lot more strain on the tires. So after actually driving this, I would probably be moving this to probably 6.6 would be my say. I was getting a bit of push in the corners, so a bit of understeer, so I don't really want as much stress on the tires, and we'll move it down to 6, and then the rear end will bring it up a little bit more just to bring that rear end. I like a taily car, so your dampening ratios are all, again, extremely complicated to get a hold on. Reading that little blurb, actually for all of them on the right, is recommended. Again, rule of thumb, so dropping it will make the ride softer, and then raising it will make the ride stiffer. Your dampening ratios, so if you read here, the compression will cause so lower values will cause the spring to compress more quickly. So obviously if you go over a big bump, it will just sort of react straight away. And then with the rebound, lower values will cause the springs to rebound more quickly. So if you're finding that, well, for example, the rebound, you're going over a bumpy curb like you might see at Nürburgring GP, you would lower these values so that the car doesn't get really badly shifted around coming out of the curb, so that you're able to sort of get it back on the deck as soon as you can, and you can get right back to doing what you have to do. And then it'll be similar with the compression, where if you lower it, you probably just get it over and done with straight away, and the whole damper will just sort of take the load straight away, and it won't be as strung out. You won't be as effective for as long. Again, testing with these. Camber angles, less camber on the rear is more traction, but only to a certain point. If you have like no rear camber at all, your rear is not going to have any grip mid-corner. So you need a certain amount of rear camber. Normally it's sitting at about 2, 1.5, somewhere between 1 and 2.5 for both of these will have you at a right point. Again, just trial and error, sort of make a small tweak on each side, see how the car feels. As well for the race, less camber is less tyre wear. So keep that in mind. You won't be wanting to run a huge amount of camber for the race. Similar with toe angles, less toe angle is less tyre wear. These ones are very straightforward in the way of reading the blurb. So toe out in the front will make your car turn in a lot better, whereas toe in will be a bit more stable, but you're going to get a lot of understeer. And then toe in on the rear, again, a lot more stable. Decent traction, I suppose. The traction doesn't really change, believe it or not, between them. And the toe out in the rear is going to make it turn in like crazy. Toe out in the rear is normally something you want to stay clear of. It makes the car very unstable. Downforce is straightforward. You always want to have the front at max in any car you go to. It just doesn't lose you much top speed, and it makes the front end a lot more sharp. And then the rear end, you'll be able to sort of just shift that around depending on how the car feels. So again, I had a really good run before. The rear wasn't that crazy, so I'm able to take a lot more rear downforce off it and just be comfortable with what the car's doing. And again, that's just testing. That's probably one of the last things you want to do once you've found your setup. Now the diff, again, very, very tough to get a proper grasp on. In short, the higher your settings, the more aggressive the application of power is going to be. So a 60 rate in the initial torque is going to be extremely aggressive. Basically, you're going to put the power down and everything's going to be happening at once behind you. The lower the setting is, the more gentle it's going to be. However, it's also going to mean that the rear tires are spinning at different rates constantly. Obviously, the LSD coming into play there. Not constantly, obviously, exit of corners, which is why I mentioned earlier in the video, at the exit of the cutting especially, you'll find that the loading of the tires coming out of there, everything's going to be trying to put through the right wheel. Left one's going to be spinning quite a lot, and you'll actually find yourself understeering into that wall with too low a setting. So it's all about finding that balance. I could probably raise it a little bit more. It was understeering a tad, but it was still, yeah, I don't know. Again, testing. Lower the braking sensitivity, the better for this. The lower, yeah, look, this is something I don't fully understand, the braking sensitivity. In an MR car, what'll happen is when you back off or when you're under brakes, A higher setting will actually just mean that the rears are almost totally connected to the gearbox, is how it feels, and you'll end up almost looping it coming into braking zones. The lower setting means that you're able to put up with a lot more load coming into braking, and it's just a more comfortable car to drive. And then gearboxes are pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, just get it to the point where your top speed for sixth is topping out, just before the end of the rev bar, and then tweak again for the race to account for any toe. And so you can just do all that with the max speed auto set. Gearbox flips aren't worth explaining in this video. You're better off YouTubing Gran Turismo Sport gearbox flip if you really need to change your gear ratios dramatically. And then just for each corner you go through, you're able to adjust them ever so slightly so that you're in the max power range. For example, I know that through turn 1, second gear was a little bit short, so I'd probably tweak it to sit at like 163 just so I get better drive coming out of the corner. And then I'm able to just sort of bring first up a little bit more, maybe shift third away just by a couple of Ks, and it's all just a lot more fluid. So again, just a random video for just the FT1. Don't take this as a I must copy his setup. Just take it as a way to sort of get your eye in with tuning, and you have to work for it. Like I've done a lot of tuning for endurance events in the past, which is why I'm able to sort of extract a lot out of the car straight away. And I know the same goes for a lot of the top guys. I know Mid-Matt will be right on it. Jono Stan, Captain Risky, PX7 Twitchy is pretty solid with these things. I know a lot of these guys will be right on it. Feel free to ask for help. I know it's pretty busy. It's a busy week for a lot of these guys, sorting liveries, getting their own tunes ready. But we should be able to find some time. And as always, keep me updated on any times you guys are doing. I've actually made I think it was only 2 changes to the bop recently. None of the cars have been touched, just some personal driver bops was Disco Stew and Orphan Drop. So it was an extra 1% weight for Orphan and 1% off for Stu Wilson, Disco Stew. But yeah, please keep me updated on how you guys are going, and I really hope this helps. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to next week. So yeah, cheers.